it normally say pause like this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is working. Hey, Krishna. The microphone's working. You can say.
Oh, okay.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, there.
Okay. Hare Krishna. All right. Okay. Can everybody hear? Okay. This happy Nrsimha Chaturdasi to everybody. This is the glorious appearance of Lord Nrsimhadev, and we're going to be speaking a little bit about his appearance today for the next 45 minutes to an hour. And then we have, after that, we have Abhishek, or no? Oh, then it's Fire Yagya. I guess people will come a little later. It's a weekday. Namaste, Narasingaya. Namaste, Narasingaya. Baladalad, Dayane. Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha. Silatamka Nakalaye. Itona singa, baratona singo. Yatso yamita tona singa. Bahina singo, Hidayana singo. The Singamatim Sharanam Prapajoy. The Singamatim Sharanam Prapajoy. Namaste Narasingaya. Baladalad, Dayane. Hiranyakasi, Purvaksaka. Shilatamka, Nakalaye. Itona singa, paratona singo. Yato yamita tona singa. Bakina singo, Hidayana singo. The Singamatim Sharanam Prapajoy. the singing of a team, Sharanam Prabha Joy. Namakara Kama Lapa pray, Nakama put to sing, Ngaham. Dalita, Hiranya Kasipu Tanu bring, Ngaham. Hey Savatrita, Narahati Rupa, Jayadagade Sate. Jayagati Sakate, Jayagati Sakate. Kamakara Kamalapa Prayana Kam Buddha sing Danita Hiranya Kasipu Danu bring Isawatrita Narahadi Rupa Jajakati Sagate Jayagati Sagate, Jayagati Sagate. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Jaya Nrsingadev, 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 Jaya Nrsingadev. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nrsinga Bhagavan ki jai, Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa. ISKCON founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Garadha Shivasri Gaur, Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath, Saya Mukunda Radha Kunda, Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavanam ki jai, Mathuram ki jai, Jagannath Swami ki jai, Yamunamai ki jai, Srimati Tulsi Devi ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Budale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami, Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani, Nivashesha Shunyavadi, Paschatya Dejatarni. So Om Gana Timadanda Shah, Gananjana Shilakaya, Chakshur Unmeditam, Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Okay, give me the garlands. So again, happy Nrsinga Chaturdasi. And so this is one of the most important days of the year. And so we're going to speak a little bit about Lord Nrsingadev's appearance, making reference to the Srimad Bhagavatam. But before we do that, we want to talk about why we worship Lord Nrsingadev. You know, why we worship Lord Nrsingadev. Why don't we have special days for every single incarnation of the Lord? Because we do worship Lord Varaha and Lord Ram like that, but I don't think we do the Matsya avatar and many other avatars. In fact, it's described that there are as many avatars. Let me describe what an avatar is. Avatar means an appearance of the Lord who descends to this material world. The word avatar means to cross down. So there's many avatars as there are waves in the ocean. So why Lord Nrsinga is such a very, very special day for us? And this is described by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Because when Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was a little boy, and his father's name, of course, was Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave him a Nrsinga mantra as well as a Kurma deity to worship. So why was that? Why the Nrsinga mantra? Why is it so important? Well, actually, Srila Prabhupada, before we describe that, Srila Prabhupada said that we worship Lord Nrsinga to protect the Krishna consciousness movement, to protect the spiritual master. But why did Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur get that mantra? The reason he got that mantra was because Lord Nrsingadev not only gets rid of the external Hiranyakashipus. Hiranyakashipus means people who are opposed to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he gets rid of the internal Hiranyakashipus. Who are the internal Hiranyakashipus? That's lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, like that, all what we call anarthas, things that we don't want. So we pray to Lord Nrsingadev within our hearts to get rid of all these bad things that are impeding our Krishna consciousness. So that's one of the main reasons for chanting and worshiping Lord Nrsingadev. Now it's very interesting. Like Prabhupada, sometimes I was talking to someone last night about this pastime of Prabhupada. Prabhupada sometimes, he acted like Lord Nrsingadev when he was preaching Krishna consciousness, and I'll tell a very interesting story. The story was raised as a question to me last night by one of my godbrothers. He said that it says in the Bhagavad Gita that one should follow the austerities of speech. The austerities of speech are sacha priya hitam, speaking truthfully, speaking pleasingly, and beneficially. So, in other words, and also Krishna says in the Gita, one shouldn't speak in such a way as to agitate the minds of those who are materially attached, but encourage them to work in a spirit of devotion. So we find, and I'm contrasting or comparing what Srila Prabhupada said in a particular instance with what Prahlad Maharaj said in a particular instance to his father. So we find that Prahlad Maharaj would often say things that would agitate his father. So wasn't he following the injunction to be Satya Prihitam, truthful, because it was truthful, but pleasing and beneficially if his father was just getting angry? And why wasn't he encouraging his father just like to cool it and not to talk to his father? Because generally, when we tell people how to speak to others about Krishna consciousness, we tell people just be careful not to explain more than the person is capable of hearing. In fact, that's one of the offenses on chanting the holy name of the Lord. And then we find Prabhupada did a similar thing in many circumstances, but this is something that occurred in Philadelphia where I just was. The story that Prabhupada talking to a professor. So there was a professor of religion who came to see Srila Prabhupada, and they introduced the professor to Srila Prabhupada, and they said, Prabhupada, here's the professor of religion. And Prabhupada said, what is the purpose of religion? You know, who is God? He was asking this professor. And the professor said, I don't know. And then Prabhupada turned to Swarup Damodar Goswami. And he said to Swarup Damodar Goswami, he said, here's a professor of religion. He says, he does not know what religion is or what God is or anything like that. And so, what do we call him? And Swarup Damodar Goswami said, he's a cheater, Prabhupada. I mean, heavy words. And Prabhupada said, yes, he's a cheater, you're a cheater. So here's Prabhupada speaking very, very strongly, and we're comparing that with Prahlad Maharaj speaking very, very strongly to his father, Hiranyakashipu. And in both cases, it didn't appear like there was a favorable response. So why was Prahlad Maharaj doing that, and why was Srila Prabhupada doing that? First of all, we have to understand that Prahlad Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada are Maha Bhagavat devotees. So the injunctions about not agitating the mind of anyone are meant for those who are not Maha Bhagavat devotees, which means probably most of us here, unless there's an exception. So we don't see any exceptions here right now. So the injunction is meant for those who are not Mahabhagavad devotees. And for those who are Mahabhagavad devotees, there's always a favorable result of being heavy if they have to be heavy like that. And of course, Prahlad Maharaj's favorable result was that his father was killed, but we'll describe in a few minutes why that was favorable. So what was Prabhupada's favorable result? There's more to the story that I don't think anyone here has heard, that I finally heard last night, because I was always wondering why Prabhupada was so heavy with this particular individual. That about a year or two later, Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, my dear godbrother, who now lives in Mayapur, ran into the professor. And the professor, he asked the professor, "How are you doing? Wasn't it a little heavy? You know, the way Prabhupada dealt with you?" And the professor said, "No, he woke me up. He got me to realize that what I was teaching, what I was understanding was a bunch of nonsense." So really, careful. So a pure devotee, the main point is, a pure devotee like Prahlad Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada can do things that we should not do. You know, many of us, when we first joined the Krishna conscious movement, we approached our parents in the same way that Prahlad Maharaj approached his parent. And we had similar, not similar, but, you know, somewhat similar unfavorable results. Of course, obviously we didn't get thrown into a pit of vipers or into a pit of boiling oil or having curses or anything at us, but still, it wasn't the appropriate thing to do. So we have to be careful when presenting Krishna consciousness. As Prabhupada said, discretion is the better part of valor. We have to understand that we are not pure devotees of the Lord. That's another point Prabhupada made in a lecture that I was just reading today. Prabhupada said Prahlad Maharaj was thrown off a cliff and Krishna caught him. He didn't die. So we should not think that we can jump off of a cliff and Krishna will catch us, because we are not on the level of Prahlad Maharaj. So these are some interesting realizations we had. So let's get to the story about the appearance of Lord Nrsimhadev. So this story occurs in the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a whole discussion between Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadev Goswami as to why the Lord seems to favor the devotees or the demigods and disfavors the demons. So isn't Krishna supposed to be equal? As Krishna says in the Gita, Samoham sarvabhuteshu name dveshosti na priha. I'm equal to everyone. I don't have any special enemies. I don't have any friends. Because one explanation given why it appears that the Lord is unequal is that Krishna has arranged this material universe to favor those who favor the mode of goodness. But even apart from that, let's talk about the Lord's personal pastimes, where he kills the demons and protects the devotees. Pritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushkritam. So this is what Krishna says in the Gita. So it appears that he's not being equal. So why is this? Because why would he not be equal? Because the Lord has no false ego. For us, we have certain things that we need. So if we need something, we're going to praise someone or be nice to someone. And if someone interferes with our false ego and criticizes us, then we're going to be nasty to them because we have some biases in this world, whereas Krishna has no biases. He has everything. He in the spiritual world, he has Lakshmi Sahasra Sambrahma Sevyamanam Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Krishna has unlimited Lakshmis, so what does he need from anyone? And Krishna doesn't need anyone's protection. So he's not like the jealous God that we generally see in the Judeo-Christian religions, where God is depicted as a very jealous person. You know, someone's not worshiping me, I'll smash them to bits, send them to hell. So, then in order to answer that particular question, there's of course, the story not only of Hiranyakashipu, but of Hiranyaksha, Shishupal, Dantavakra, and Ravana and Kumbhakarna that is told. But it's explained here that, in one sense, criticism of the Lord in many circumstances can be considered favorable for the person. Actually, there's two types of criticism that are described in this part of the Bhagavatam. One type is favorable and the other type is unfavorable. So favorable criticism would be like the criticism that the gopis have for Krishna, or Srimati Radharani has for Krishna, when Krishna is, let's say, making believe that he's more interested in Chandravali than he is in Srimati Radharani. And then Lalita Shaki gets very angry, and Radharani gets very angry at Krishna. That's called favorable criticism. And there's two types of unfavorable criticism, and one type is actually good, and the other type is bad. So the two types of unfavorable criticism are, one, the type that is good, is the type that Shishupal and Hiranyakashipu have, because they're meditating and angry directly against the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's considered favorable because they're meditating on the Supreme Lord. And ultimately, they get Sayuja Mukti. Of course, Sayuja Mukti means liberation in terms of merging into the existence of the Lord. And the unfavorable types would be like our modern day atheists who don't believe in God at all, don't meditate on any particular form of God. And one example given in the Bhagavatam of someone like that is Venu. Venu, he proclaimed himself to be God and didn't even believe in the demigods at all. So this bad karma, just by Sayuja Mukti, bad karma and everything, one's entanglement in the material world is destroyed by this unfavorable meditation on the Lord, whereby one is thinking of the form of the Lord like Hiranyakashipu. So, because in anger, the meditation is actually much more intense in general than in love. This is actually a very interesting point. It's more spontaneous than Vaidhi Bhakti. So, therefore, in order to illustrate all these points about meditation on the Lord in anger, Shukadeva Goswami tells the story of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. And we're all familiar with the birth of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, how they came from the spiritual world. They were Jaya and Vijay. And so, eventually, Krishna kills Hiranyaksha in the form of Lord Varaha. And when he kills Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha's brother, gets extremely angry. It's interesting, he gets so angry, but in order to pacify his relatives, he preaches Krishna consciousness, or basic Bhagavad Gita philosophy, to them, just to pacify them. It tells a story about the soul, how we should be detached in this material world. And he gets so angry after this that he decides that he's going to get even with Lord Vishnu. In order to get even with Lord Vishnu, he starts to perform austerities. And he goes to Mount Mandara, and he stands, as you all know the story, he stands on the tips of his toes and gives up breathing, gives up eating, and everything like that. And eventually, after his body is eaten away by the ants and he's just living in the marrow of his bones, Lord Brahma comes when he perceives the fire coming from the head of Hiranyakashipu, or the bones that were previously the head of Hiranyakashipu, and he pours water from his kamandalu to put out that fire and to give Hiranyakashipu back his body. And Hiranyakashipu, of course, asks for immortality. Now we understand that even Lord Brahma cannot give immortality. Of course, the soul is immortal. However, at the same time, we cannot be immortal in this body, which is what Hiranyakashipu wanted. So Lord Brahma tells Hiranyakashipu, I can't give you immortality, but you can actually ask for another benediction, and you can try to be immortal through your benediction. And Hiranyakashipu, feeling very intelligent, thinks, I'm going to cover all my bases. I'm going to say, well, inside, outside, I won't be killed. Day or night, I won't be killed, or by any weapon, or man, or beast, or demigod. And he thinks, I really covered all my bases. And generally, we find that when demons ask for benedictions of Lord Brahma, it sort of predicts the way that they're going to pass away. For example, there's one story told in the Mahabharata about these two demons named Sunda and Upasunda. And these two demons also went to Lord Brahma, and they asked for a benediction, and they said, well, if we have to choose how we're going to die, we're going to choose a way that we would never die. And they said, we'll choose the way that we would kill each other. And of course, these two demons were brothers. They loved each other very much. And there was no way, they thought, that they would actually kill each other or attack each other. So Lord Brahma had a plan. He called for Vishwakarma, and he asked Vishwakarma to put together a very beautiful lady, taking the parts from all the ladies in the universe. Not taking the parts away, but anyway. But taking the best nose, the best eyes, the best ears, the best toes, whatever. And he created this personality, Vishwakarma created this personality known as Tilotama. Tilotama means like a topmost sesame girl. It's a very cute little name. So he created this Tilotama, and he said, Tilotama, you have to cause the destruction of these two guys, Sunda and Upasunda. So she circumambulated all the demigods, asking them for their blessings, and she was so attractive that some of the demigods grew extra heads, some grew extra eyes just to see her, just so they wouldn't have to turn around and look at her. And they sent her on her mission. So she goes down to where Sunda and Upasunda are, and Sunda and Upasunda are drunk at this time. And as soon as they saw her, they started to fight over her. One of them said, she's mine, she's mine. The other one said the same thing. And eventually, they killed each other. So when you get the benediction from the demigods, this is how it works out sometimes. So the same thing with Hiranyakashipu, who thought that he was going to make all the arrangements to live a long time. Similarly, we have the scientists nowadays who are thinking through all these different arrangements, Neuralink, putting a link in your brain, then you're going to be able to live a much longer life, or live forever, upload you into a computer or something like that. So anyway, Hiranyakashipu becomes so powerful at this point that all the demigods begin to serve him except for Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And he starts creating offenses, not only against Prahlad Maharaj, which will happen a little bit later, but he starts committing offenses against other devotees. And this is an important lesson we can learn from the story of Lord Nrsingadev and Prahlad Maharaj, that when one commits offenses, however powerful one may be, one loses all of his potency, ability, and good fortune. So what happens is that going back in the story a little bit, is that Prahlad Maharaj, while Hiranyakashipu was performing his austerities, Prahlad Maharaj was within the womb of his mother, Kayadu, and this Kayadu was taken by Narada Muni to his ashram, and this ashram, Narada Muni, is there in Govardhan. It's called Narada Kund, the Narada Kund area. And so Narada Muni was instructing her in Krishna consciousness, and she was listening, and within her womb was Prahlad Maharaj, who was listening. So this is also another important point, that sound vibration is extremely important, that even if one doesn't understand what one is hearing, still it has a purifying effect if it's spiritual sound vibration. Or material sound vibration, even if you hear it unconsciously, not being aware of what's playing in the background, that affects your consciousness through the influence of the modes of nature. So one has to be very, very careful, because the process is bhavanti vrit karna. When you hear something, it goes from the ear to the heart, according to Lord Kapila Dev. There's like a channel between the ear and the heart. So one has to be careful what they're hearing, and it's very important to immerse yourself in Krishna Katha as much as possible. So, then what happens is that Prahlad Maharaj, of course, by hearing within the womb of his mother, became a great devotee. And later on, his mother gave birth after she came back to join her husband, Hiranyakashipu. And there were 4 sons of Hiranyakashipu. And from his early childhood, Prahlad Maharaj was completely disinterested in all material pursuits, especially disinterested in politics. And his teachers were teaching him politics. What does politics mean? It means basically that you have to act in a certain way or vote in a certain way, even if it goes against your own personal moral beliefs or ethical beliefs, just so you'll keep your position. And we see this, of course, in the U.S. government, too. This is happening. I'm not going to criticize any particular politician at this point. That people sacrifice their own ethical standing just because of the desire to keep their position. So politics, according to the Bhagavatam, politics means to employ the different methods of dealing with people, which are sweet words, high position, divide and conquer, threats and punishment. In other words, if you have an enemy or someone you want to influence, the first way to do it is you just speak sweetly to them. Second way is that you give them some position or praise like that. Another one is you divide and conquer. And divide and conquer means you speak to their enemy and you tell them their enemy doesn't like them. And you tell them they talk to them and say their enemy does. I go play one side against another. And finally, if that doesn't work, then you threaten them, and if that doesn't work, then you beat them. So this is politics. So Prahlad Maharaj rejected this. And so because he rejected this, he was sent to his father by his teachers Sanda and Amarka, and Sanda and Amarka sent it to his father, and his father asked him, what is the best thing you have learned in Gurukula? This happened several times. He went back and forth to his father, went to Gurukula. And we call this a Gurukula because it was the place of his spiritual master. His spiritual master's name was Shukracharya, and his spiritual master's teachers, the sons of his spiritual master, were Sanda and Amarka. So he went back to his father. His father said, what's the best thing you learned? And basically he told his father that you're so attached in this material world that the best thing you do for you is to renounce everything and take sannyas. He says, this is a quote, he says, O best of the suras, king of the demons, as far as I have learned from my spiritual master, Any person who has accepted a temporary body and temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen in a dark well where there is no water but only suffering. One should give up this position and go to the forest. More clearly, one should go to Vrindavan, where only Krishna consciousness is prevalent, and one should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So his father, of course, chastises him, sends him back to school, and preaches to them, tries to preach. And then he comes back to his father again, and his father accuses the teachers of teaching him improper subject matters. And he asks Prahlad Maharaj, what is the best thing you've learned again? And at this point, Prahlad Maharaj replies with his famous verse from the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, etc., the 9 processes of devotional service. And then he tells his father, you're simply wasting your time. Matirna Krishna Padatos Vatova, Pito Pitpadyeta Graha, Vrajanamandanta Gopir Vishatam Tamishram, Purnak Purnas Charvita Charvitanam. You're simply chewing the chewed. Matirna Krishna Padatos Vatova. Those who do not want Krishna, in spite of having good association, good advice, they're simply going to be engaged in just chewing the already chewed, which means doing the same thing over and over again, which Einstein said is the definition of insanity, continuing to do the same thing and thinking you're going to get a different result. His father at this point got so upset with him that he said, let's kill the guy. And so they first tried to chop him up. They turned him over to some Rakshasas. They put him under the feet of elephants, put him in a pit of vipers. His father employed Brahmins to curse him, threw him off a hill, gave him poison, wind, fire, tried to crush him, starve him, and freeze him, and stone him to death. A lot like that. Especially with the fire. There's an interesting story about Holika, that some of you may know, that Holika was Hiranyakashipu's sister, and she had the benediction that she couldn't be burnt by fire. So she said, I'll take care of this Prahlad Maharaj. And she held him, and she went on top of a funeral pyre, and they lit the fire, and Prahlad Maharaj survived, and she just became a pile of ashes at that point. So Hiranyakashipu was very frustrated at this point, and he said, take him back to school. And Prahlad, when he got back to school this time, he started to teach the children, became even more bold, and he started to teach the children about Krishna consciousness. And there's famous verses in the Bhagavatam about the children first objecting, saying that Prahlad, we're just little children. I mean, what can we know about Krishna consciousness? And Prahlad Maharaj answered the famous verse, Komar acharet pragyo dharmam bhagavatang niha durlabha manusa janma tadav dhruvam arthanam, that you should take up Krishna consciousness from the very birth or from the very beginning of your life, because this human birth, this human life is very, very rare. Komar acharet, you must take up, that's the imperative in Sanskrit. Pragyo dharmam bhagavatang niha durlabha manasa janma tadav dhruvam artadam. And then he said to his friends, you're making excuses now because you're too young to take up Krishna consciousness, but later on you're going to be making excuses because you're teenagers. Later on you're going to be making excuses because you just got married. And he went through the hypothetical whole life of the person. He said 50% is wasted in sleeping, 20% when you're young, another 20% when you're a little older, 20% when you're retired, and 20% when you're too old to do anything. And in other words, he came up with more than 100%. So in this way, he convinced his friends to take up Krishna consciousness. And they all started to chant Hare Krishna, and the teacher walked in on the whole thing, and he got dragged to his father again. His father asked him, "Where do you get your power?" And he answers, "The same place you do, Dad." And he tells his father, "Just be equal, Dad. Be peaceful. Your real enemy is the six senses, not Vishnu." And Hiranyakashipu answers, "Where is your God?" Prahlad Maharaj answers, "He's everywhere." And Hiranyakashipu says, "Is he in a pillar?" And Prahlad Maharaj says, "Yes, he's in the pillar. He's everywhere." And Hiranyakashipu hits the pillar, and Lord Nrsingadev comes out and plays with Hiranyakashipu, and eventually kills Hiranyakashipu in the doorway, and pulls out his intestines and his heart and his nails, and so many gory things happen at this particular point. So one may question, why does Lord Nrsingadev appear in such a way to kill Hiranyakashipu? Of course, we could say is because of the benediction that Hiranyakashipu got, that he had to figure out a way. But Lord Nrsingadev, or Supreme Personality of Godhead, doesn't need to be tricky like that in order to kill. The reason that actually Lord Nrsingadev comes down in this particular way, or Krishna comes down in this particular way, is to enjoy ras. Because in the spiritual world, we have the 5 basic rasas, and of course, a certain manifestation of the 7 indirect rasas. But some of the 7 indirect rasas, such as ghastliness and anger, cannot be fully expressed in the spiritual world. So Krishna comes down and he arranges for his devotees to take birth in this world so he can fully express these different rasas. Rasa means like a taste of a relationship, like anger or fear, or these other rasas that are not fully manifest in the spiritual world. So, anyway, getting back to the killing, Hiranyakashipu is killed. He's on the lap of Lord Nrsingadev, and he was so angry that the airplanes in outer space were actually thrown some distance away, and Lord Nrsingadev eventually sits on the throne of Hiranyakashipu. And then at this point, the demigods are all afraid. They don't know what to do. And even Lakshmi is afraid, and she hardly recognizes her husband, Narayan. And Prahlad is sent forward, and he sits on the lap of Lord Nrsingadev, and Lord Nrsingadev becomes peaceful immediately and starts licking Prahlad Maharaj. At this point, there's beautiful prayers that are spoken by Prahlad Maharaj. And the first prayer is that he's not afraid of Lord Nrsingadev, but he's afraid of Maya. And the first thing he says to Lord Nrsingadev after that is he wants to express his gratitude to Narada and beg that he can always serve his spiritual master. And he's concerned with the fools and the rascals, and for love of them, he wants them to be given Krishna consciousness too. So he defines his relationship as Lord Nrsingadev offers him all sorts of benedictions. He defines his relationship with Lord Nrsingadev as simply a servant, and he says, I am a servant and you are my master, and we have no other relationships. And Lord Nrsingadev says to him, therefore you should enjoy in Krishna consciousness, but ask for a benediction. And Prahlad Maharaj replies, I am not a merchant, but I am praying for no more material desires. And Nrsingadev orders him to enjoy opulences as the king of the demons for one whole Manu period. Then Prahlad Maharaj prays to Lord Nrsingadev to forgive his father, and Lord Nrsingadev says, not only is your father forgiven, but 21 forefathers are liberated. And this means 2 types. One is the past birth of the fathers, and the other one is 21 generations in 21 generations, then 21 relatives in a horizontal fashion, like your aunts and your uncles and things like that. So this is beautiful benediction. So this is the story of Prahlad Maharaj and Lord Nrsingadev. Does anyone have any questions? Yes. Favorable criticism is when the gopis criticize Krishna for, for being pretty rambunctious. That's favorable. Unfavorable, two types of unfavorable criticism. One type is directly criticizing the form of the Lord and meditating on the form of the Lord while you're criticizing. And the other type is thinking that there's no God, everything comes about by chance. So the first type of unfavorable criticism is more favorable than the second type of unfavorable criticism. Okay? Yes?
Earlier when you were talking about all the different ways that Hiranyakashipu tried to kill Prahlad, but Prahlad still had so much faith and he was still preaching and he just, he wasn't scared. How can we, and he had that because he was a pure devotee, so for us, how can we find that sort of faith and conviction even through our own trials and tribulations?
I think faith has to be something that gradually is attained through experience, through observation of those who have faith, through chanting. It's something that has to come naturally. It's not that you can't there's no magic formula for obtaining or attaining faith. Yes, Nanda Gopal.
Thank you, Maharaj. Two questions. First is, for a devotee or a bhakta who's starting on a journey of Krishna consciousness, what should be the mood while approaching Nrsingadev, and what can we pray to him? And
well, we should pray, as I said in the beginning of the class, we should pray to help eliminate not our enemies. A devotee should not have any enemies. In fact, as described by Lord Kapiladeva, Jata Shatrava Shanta Shadava Sadabhuchanam, one of the qualities of a Vaishnava is that a Vaishnava has no enemies. So we should be praying to destroy the enemies in our own heart. And not only the neophyte devotee should pray like that, but the advanced devotee should pray like that. Because the advanced devotee, in spite of being advanced and perhaps a pure devotee, is also thinking that he or she is a neophyte. That's the humility. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his prayer, Gopinath, Gopinath, Mama Navena Shuno Vishaya Durjana. He said, "Oh Gopinath, I am a materialistic rascal. Vishaya Durjana. I am, exactly that, materialistic rascal. Please take this sinner weeping and weeping to your lotus feet." So pure devotees naturally think that they are fallen. So we should always be praying to Lord Nrsingadev for that purpose.
thank you, Maharaj. And something I learned the first time today was regarding story of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur receiving
Nrsinga
mantra.
He also received a Karma deity too. And the Karma deity is the deity of the nectarian ocean of devotional service, the nectarian ras. And the Nrsinga mantra he received to purify their heart.
Should we recite that if we find that?
We are reciting. I mean, there are other mantras like the Nrsinga Kavacha and everything like that. Prabhupada has given us a Nrsinga mantra to recite every day. And Prabhupada instructed us to recite this at the end of Arti every day. Not only once a day, but many times a day.
Thank you.
Every time there's an Arti, we're supposed to recite that. And Prabhupada specifically said that this mantra, for us, is for us to pray for the welfare of the Krishna conscious movement and the welfare of the spiritual master. So, other questions? Yes. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam.
Very well.
This is just a technical question, but you said that the spiritual world isn't complete in anger and all these other qualities, and then Krishna comes down to exhibit those.
There's some anger in the spiritual realm, but not to the extent. Like if you read Srila Rupa Goswami's Vidagdha Madhava, you'll see that sometimes Krishna will act in such a way, for example, he'll stand up Srimati Radharani, he'll have Srimati Radharani be waiting all night for him, and he won't come. And he'll come at the end of the night, and then he'll have apparent marks from his encounters with some other girls. So that's some anger is manifest at that particular point. But not to the same extent as we find the anger of Hiranyakashipu and the anger of Lord Nrsingadev with Hiranyakashipu. And as far as other ones like ghastliness, you don't find that in the spiritual world at all.
But if Krishna desires, he can do anything, right, in the spiritual
Krishna
world?
could desire, yes, Krishna could do anything, but he's not going to do that in the spiritual world because he doesn't desire. We say that Krishna can desire, he can do anything if he desires, but why should we impose what we want him to desire on him? Right?
But it was Krishna's desire to come down as Narsimhadev.
It was
right?
Krishna's desire to come down so he can enjoy this rust. This is the esoteric reason for Krishna coming to this world. Whenever Krishna comes to this world, he comes for esoteric and exoteric reasons. Exoteric means the reason that we generally hear about Parichanaya Sanunam Vinashaya Chadushkritam. He comes to annihilate the miscreants and establish religious principles and protect the devotees. That's exoteric. Esoteric means his own particular purposes. And Srila Prabhupada explains that Krishna does not have to come down for the Parichanaya Sanunam Vinashaya Chadushkritam. He can empower others to do this. For example, there are Shaktavesh avatars. You've heard of Parashuram before?
Yes, Maharaj.
Parashuram is a Shaktavesh avatar. He's a Jiva soul who was given the power, and he certainly had the power to destroy all the Kshatriyas 21 times. So Krishna can empower, and Krishna is Aptakama. Aptakama means when Krishna desires something, that happens immediately. He doesn't have to do anything. Like Krishna desired Hiranyakashipu to be dead, then Hiranyakashipu would die in an instant. But Krishna wanted to enjoy, as we see in the Bhagavatam, he enjoyed playing with Hiranyakashipu just like a cat plays with its prey. I don't know if you've ever seen a cat catch a rat or cat catch a bird or something like that. The cat catches it, but then lets it go. And then after a while, pulls it back and lets it go again. And pulls it back and lets it go because it's playing. So this is Krishna's Leela. Nrsimha Bhagavan is a Leela avatar. Leela avatar means he enjoys what he's doing. Krishna is not forced to come down to kill the demons, establish religious principles, and protect the devotees. It can happen simply by his desire. It can happen by his empowering someone. It can happen through any one of a number of means of his energies. Durga is perfectly capable of doing any of these things. Mama Maya Durachya, Mama Evaye Prabhajate, isn't it? Daivaye Shuganamaye, Mama Maya Durachya. So Krishna can do things in a variety of ways. He's not forced because he is God. He's not forced to do it in a specific way. But the reason he does it in a specific way that we're talking about right now is because he wants to enjoy ras. That's why Krishna arranged that Jai and Vijay were cursed and came down into the material world. He arranged that. He's the expert dramatist, expert arranger. He arranged that the four Kumars would come, they would get angry, they would curse Jai and Vijay, and ultimately the Jai and Vijay would come down. Is that all right?
Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Okay. Time for another question, and otherwise it's time to, yeah.
What was Prahlad's mother going through when she saw
It's a
her
good
husband
question.
doing this?
She was in a lot of anxiety, but being a nice, chaste lady, she tolerated. I mean, I'm sure she opposed Hiranyakashipu and his activities, but what could she
There
do?
was nothing she could do.
Nothing she could do. It's like Mandodari. She wasn't happy with what Ravan was doing, but what could he do? You know, you realize that you're powerless in certain circumstances. You can give good advice, and that's about all you can do. But she was in complete, I'm sure she was in complete distress.
So there's no mention like if after Hiranyakasipu was killed and Prahlad became the king. that
I
she
have
was
not
there.
read anything about her.
Yeah, I never read anything about her
Yeah.
after.
So, what happens now? So Abhishek for Lord Nrsingadev. Okay, all glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna. So let's first of all thank His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj for the wonderful enlightening class on the glories of Nrsimhadev. His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So Hare Krishna everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today on this very, very special occasion. Nice to see all of you to come early on a working day. Thank you so much for coming. Shri Shri Radha Golokananda Ki. Shri Giriraj Govardhan Ki. Shri Prahlad Narasimhadev Bhagwan Ki. Shri Prahlad Narasimhadev Bhagwan Ki. Shri Prahlad Narasimhadev Bhagwan Ki. Shri Shri Panchatattva Ki. ISKCON founder Acharya His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So welcome everyone. Thank